So let's review what's coming next. I'm in the demo app. What I would like to do is recreate this navigation bar just so we can see who is currently logged in. We can log out, we can navigate to different pages, right? We need to do that. But more importantly, we're going to have these two boxes here. And in fact, we've got sort of three different views. On the left-hand side is account details. If a user wants to change their email address, we save that back to the Bubble database, but we're also going to update that on Stripe. So we need another call, an API call to be able to do that. On the right-hand side, we'll display the user's current plan back to them. We're going to have some information in here which shows the start date and the period end date of each billing cycle. A user will be able to download their invoices. These, by the way, will be generated by Stripe. They will be PDFs. Then we're going to have this cancel plan button. That's going to be another API call. And then lastly, this manage plan, which is going to take a user to Stripe customer portal, a bit like the checkout session with a branded page. Stripe enables all sorts of functionality and logic that we can enable or disable. And what we're going to do is take a middle ground approach. In the customer portal, we will allow users to update their card details or add a new card, upgrade or downgrade their plan, and Stripe will handle some of the logic around proration for us. And then on the page itself, we are going to configure the ability to view and download invoices and for a user to be able to cancel their plan as well. All right, so some logic up on customer portal, some on the page. It's good to know how to do both. Let's get started. So let's just deal with the nav bar for now. We're going to go and create a new reusable element. I'm going to call that nav bar. Bring up the property editor on the layout tab and choose row, 1200 builder width to match the size of the page, and 80 tall, which is just a creative choice. Okay, this nav bar, I'd like it to be a floating group so content can scroll beneath it. Now we need a container. So grab yourself a group, drop it in and rename it to group container. This container exists because I want to be able to center the content with a max width of 1200. Okay, remove the min width. Height's going to be 80. Fantastic. One thing I want to do is on the nav bar, on the layout tab, change the container alignment to the center. That will put the group container in the center. I think also let's give the, let's create a little bottom solid line, little divider of light gray. All right, just 1 pixel on the border. Okay, let's do some work in group container next. On the layout tab, I'd like you to add 32 pixels left-right padding. We don't want it to touch the edges of the page. And let's work on a little brand section here. So I want a logo and the name of this pretend company, which is called Atlas. So the logo is a reusable element. I can grab it down the left-hand side and then I can drop it inside. Okay. And then we also have some text. Drop that inside as well. Type Atlas, our pretend company, and let's change the style to a heading 6. Once you've done that, you can highlight both of them and then put them in a row container. Fantastic. Let's rename this group brand. Now on the layout tab, we're going to fit with content and we're going to remove the min height. Let's apply some gap spacing to push them apart slightly. I'm going to choose 12 there. And let's center all of this. So first of all, I'm going to click on Atlas and on the layout tab, I'm going to choose vertical alignment in the center. I'm going to do the same for group brand. Actually, if we go back to group container, we can change the vertical alignment there. Sorry, in this section here. That's it. Container alignment in the center. Okay. Don't worry about this. It's not rendering correctly, but it will sort itself out. So now we need 2 links, one for sign up, one for login. So I'm going to find myself a link element. Actually, before I do that, click back on group container, go to the layout. And in fact, this does need to be a row because we want the buttons on the right-hand side. So let's just change this to a row. And then we need to click back on group brand and put it in the center. Okay. So in order to push the links for them to be sitting snug on the right-hand side, we do need to, on group container, change the container alignment to space between. Okay, so now if I drop a link inside, it should push it to the right-hand side, which, well, this got pushed to the right-hand side. So I'm going to bring this back by choosing layout, make first. And this is where I want the links on the right-hand side here. Okay, fantastic. Now we did already set up a style. So I'm going to say sign up first of all. This will go to the auth page. And this is going to be a primary link. On the layout tab, I'm going to remove the fixed width and the min width and choose fit width to content and make it 44 pixels tall and then vertically align it in the center. Let's do the login one now. So Command D to duplicate. Let's change this to login. And on the auth page, to see the login box, remember we're changing a parameter. So we're going to send more parameters to a page. The key is V and the value is login. And then let's change this to a button link secondary. Now that that's done, we can put them in a group. So I've highlighted both of them, holding down Shift, and I'm going to put them in a row container. I'm going to rename that to links. On the layout tab, I'm going to fit width to content, and I'm going to remove the min height. Last thing I'm going to do is add some gap spacing to separate them a little bit. Let's use 8 here. All right, guys, so speed build, but I do just, want to get onto the logic to the saucy stuff. So last thing we need to do in the nav bar is just add conditionals for when a user is logged in and logged out, because we're showing different data based on whether or not they are a current user or not a current user. Okay, so group links, not visible in page load, collapse when hidden, and we're going to bring it back when the current user is logged out. That's when it's visible. Okay, what about when the current user is logged in? Grab some text, drop it inside. Let's display the current user's name. Okay, I'm going to put that in the center. I'm going to duplicate this. Actually, no, now we need a link, just a regular link. I'm going to click on link, and this link will say account. In case you're on the pricing page, you want to go to the account page. And that's actually this page that we haven't created yet called account. Let's actually just change this to pricing. And I want to override the style here. I want to make it black. What is the size here? 16 dark gray. Okay, we want to match this. So let's use 16 and dark gray. I'm going to detach the style and then look at the conditional here. I'm going to just remove that. And I think we also need a medium weight. Okay, and then the last thing we'll do is fit width to content, because the link element itself is too wide, it's fixed width. So remove that, fit width to content, put that in the center. Now let's group these two together. So holding down Shift, highlight the current user's name and pricing, right click, group elements in a row container. Let's just call this user for user data, or logged in. Let's fit width to content, pushes it back to the right hand side by doing so. And let's add 8 pixels, column gap. We also don't need the min height, just remove that. Actually, Make that 44 because we need a logout button in here. That's definitely something I want to do. So grab a button, get a button inside, anywhere will do. Say logout and change it to an outline button. Last bit of design work, folks. We're going to remove fixed width, remove min width, fit width to content, and make last. Okay, so the group user, when do we want to show it? It says not visible on page load. It's collapsed when hidden, and we want to bring it back when the current user is logged in. That's when it's visible. And on the left-hand side, we can use this eye icon to show and hide our various groups in the design section. All right, I'm pretty happy with that. So now we can create our account page. Let's go ahead, add a new page. Account, create. Bring up the property editor. Change it to a column, top to bottom. Consistent size here, which is 1200. And what I'm going to do is change the color to our surface color. So we've got a shiny new nav bar. Let's grab it down here and drop it on the page. Boom, looking good. Let's change the page title to account. Space, pipe icon, Atlas. And like with all of our builds, we also need a group container with our various padding. So I'm going to scroll up, find myself a group, drop it inside, call this group container. And then go straight to the layout tab because I actually want some top margin. I want this group container to start beneath this nav bar. So I know the nav bar is 80 pixels in height. So I'm going to set the margin to 80. So now it starts just beneath it. Now I can remove fit height to content so it spans top to bottom, remove any values I'm not using, such as the min height and the min width. And now I can add in my regular padding, 96 top and bottom, 32 left and right. Okay, let's give this some text. Drop the text inside. Type the word account. And this changes, let's try H4, that looks good. Grab some more text. We want a little subtitle here. And let's write, manage your account details and plan. Group these two together for proximity reasons. In a column, call this group. Group header will do. And let's just add a little bit of gap spacing. Let's try 4 pixels. Yep, I like that. Okay, so now for account details. So this, we need a group. Account details. Now we have a style we're going to use. It's called the card medium. There it is there. And for now, we're just going to add a bit of max width, 480, but the page will actually determine the width later on. I just want to create some space to work within. I don't want an edge to edge, it's too much. Set this at 480 for now. We're going to come back and remove some of these values. Okay, let's grab some text, drop it inside. This will say account details. And let's try heading 6 here, looking good. Grab some more text. This will say update your account details below. And I'm going to change this to a body small. These need to be in their own group. Column container. title and subtitle, and then 4 pixels of row gap. Okay, remove the 60 on the min width, and that's done. So guys, now we need 3 inputs here. The first one will be for the person's name, and then the person's email. And then we're going to have a hidden input for the password, because in Bubble, if you want to change a user's email address, well, the user needs to re-authenticate to do that, okay? So that will be hidden, and we'll use conditional logic for when to show the password input back to a user, basically when they want to change the email address. So let's find ourselves an input. Here it is here, drop it inside. We're going to type name, and this will have initial content, the current user's name. That's going to be text, and I do want this to have a value. So I'm going to check the box that says this input should not be empty. So we've already done the styling. We can just go to the layout tab and let this span edge to edge. And I want it to be 44 pixels in height, consistent with all of our buttons and inputs. Let's add some gap spacing on group account details, this new big card we've just put down. Let's add 20. I'm going to duplicate this 2 times now. Command D and Command D. So on the middle one, this will be email or email address. This will be current user's email. And we're going to change the content type to email and check the box that says this input should not be empty. And then lastly, this will be password. Going to clear the initial content because you don't have initial content for a password, but we are going to change the content format to password, and that basically creates the dots when a person types a password. Okay, these 3 need to be in their own column container, so I've highlighted all 3, and I'm going to say column container, change this to inputs, and add some gap spacing. I'm going to try 8 for these, a bit more. 12. Now we need to be able to save the data here, so we need a button for that. Drop it outside of the group, but inside of group account details. This will say save. And let's just have this spanning edge to edge and make sure that it's set to 44 pixels min height. Okay, and what I did at the bottom here, I'm going to copy this and then paste it back in. I've got a little message here saying, for problems, contact support@atlas.com. I'm guessing atlas.com support is an actual real email address. But anyway, just having some fun. I'll put that in the center, horizontal alignment. Once we've done that, guys, we are pretty much done with the design work on this group account details. So I'm going to remove them in height. And I'm actually going to also remove them in width and remove the max width. I'm going to let that span edge to edge because we're going to copy and paste it now. Okay, so with group account details highlighted, I'm just actually going to duplicate this, Command D. It's going to put it at the bottom, that's okay. I've got some overlap problems here, so I'm going to click back on group container and select fit height to content at the bottom of the layout tab. Fantastic. Now we want these side by side, okay? So let's first of all change the name here. Let's change this to group plan, just so we can distinguish which is which. So let's highlight group plan. And in actual fact, I'm going to do this in the elements tree. So here is group account details, group plan. I'm going to highlight both of them, right click, group elements in a row container. I'm going to rename this group content. I'm going to give 20 pixels of column gap. Let's have a look at that. Yeah, that looks good to me. Okay, let's work on this right-hand side now. This will say manage or cancel your plan below. And then I'm going to grab some text, drop it inside. I'm just going to type a placeholder for now. $400 yearly plan. And I'm going to change this to a H3. Now I'm going to grab a group and I'm going to draw this group inside, okay, that other group. I'm going to call this group started. And this is where we're going to display some data back to a user. On the layout, sorry, on the appearance tab, let's give this a flat color and find your surface color. I'm going to make this 44 pixels in height. Remove the min width. And actually on the appearance tab, let's add 8 on the roundness. Okay. Duplicate that one more time. And then just, we're going to delete these inputs shortly, so don't worry about them. I'm just leaving them for spacing purposes for the time being. This will be called group renews. Okay. Now we can delete these inputs. Delete, 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 and we've retained this great spacing here. So this save button now is going to be called cancel. And we're going to change this from not primary. I don't want my cancel button to be a primary. I want it to be an outline. I want it to be a bit smaller, right? Just some psychology here. But I do want a link element in here. So I'm going to drop a link element inside. I'm going to say manage plan. This link is going to take us to an external URL. And that external URL is actually created for us in our Stripe dashboard. All we need to do is copy and paste it to activate it. We'll grab it shortly. Let's style this though. Let's say this is primary, okay? And we will let it span edge to edge with 44 pixels of height. And then let's group these two together. So I've highlighted the link and the button and I'm going to put them in a row container. Call this actions. Let's add some row gap, 20, and remove them in height. Okay, and we don't need this down here. I'm going to change account details to current plan. And we will create a little toggle here as well. So this will be current plan. I'm going to duplicate this. This will say invoices. And I want them side by side, so I'm going to say previous and invoices. So these are next to each other, top and bottom. And then let's right click, put them in a row container. Rename this to group toggle. I'm going to add, let's do about 12 on the column. Yep, that looks good. And then remove them in height. Okay, cracking on. Inside these, both of these, we need a bit of padding. So I'm going to highlight both of them. And we just need some left-right padding here. I'm going to choose 16 and 16. And we're going to grab some text, put the text inside, and just add some dummy data for now. Start it on 16th of June, 2024, 5:47 p.m. All right, just some dummy data. Let's change it to a body small, and let's make this a bit bolder, so it's semi-bold. After you've done that, we can click back on the group started and put that in the center. And just copy and paste this element. I don't actually want a fit width content here, so I'm going to let it span edge to edge. Then copy, then paste. And this will just say, instead of started, it will say renews. Okay. You can then click on group renews, layout tab, put it in the center. All right, folks, making excellent progress, making really, really good progress. Okay guys, so we've got the design done, we've got some dummy data. I want to be playing with live data. So we do need to make a call to Stripe to go fetch subscription data based on the user's customer ID. And we'll pull that back onto the page and display it back to a user. So back in the API connector, what we need to do is add another GET call. Similar to retrieve an invoice, this time we're going to retrieve a subscription. I'm going to add another call and then name this retrieve subscription. This is going to be data because we're just pulling it down, and this will be a get call. Let's jump into the Stripe docs now. And I'm going to scroll down on the left-hand side and look for billing and then subscriptions. And then we want to retrieve a subscription. Retrieves the subscription with the given ID. And we saved the ID back to Bubble, so we have that. Fantastic. Let's go ahead and copy the curl URL on the right-hand side. And as you can see, it's in a similar format to retrieve invoice, where we just pass the ID through a parameter. Now we can paste this in. And then let's put, well, actually we can just delete this subscription and then square brackets add ID. Okay, uncheck private, that needs to be dynamic. And in terms of the subscription ID, this needs to be real data, okay? So we need to grab this from the database. App data, all subscriptions, and here we have a subscription ID. Starts with sub. I'm going to copy that, go back to plugins, paste that in. And once you've done that, we can simply initialize the call. Okay, now this is a crucial part here, guys, to pay attention, please. What we're looking for is some date data. Now, if we zoom in a little bit, I'm going to show you how some date data is returned from Stripe. So currently we have this field here, current period end, current period start. These are two that we need. And we can see it's returned as a bunch of numbers, and the field type is number and number. Now, these are actually Unix formatted numbers here. So this is actually date data. Bubble gives us the option to format this as Unix numbers or Unix date data. So we click drop down and we say date Unix. Same with this one. This is also date Unix. I'm also going to scroll up and I'm going to look at cancel at. We're going to need this later on. Let's also change this to a date Unix. Nothing was returned because it's returning real data that exists in the Stripe dashboard, and this subscription that we inputted as the ID, that's not been scheduled to cancel. So there's no sample data here, but I know from experience that this is going to be a Unix date. So we've got Unix date and then current period start, current period end. Let's save that. Now we can head back to the design tab and we can make these two values dynamic. So I'm going to take this portion here, the date portion. I'm going to insert dynamic data. I'm going to say get data from external API. That's going to be this retrieve subscription that we've just created. Now we need to feed through the ID. Very simply, it's the current user subscriptions, ID subscription. And then on the end, we are looking for the current period start. And that's formatted as a date. Let's choose this format type here. Okay, and for renews, let's do a similar thing. Insert dynamic data. Let's go find the retrieve subscription, feed through the ID of the current user's subscription's ID subscription. And then look for the current period end, because the end and the start of the next period is basically the same date. And why don't we do this actually? I want the time in here as well. So I'm going to go to custom. Okay, so that deals with that. Now, this particular figure here, we can just pull from the current user's subscriptions plans, which is the option set. And then we want the amount, which is here. Okay, format it as USD. I'm not going to do any decimals because it's 20, 50, and 400 flat. Okay, that's how I'm formatting it, and then close. Now, there's a lot of space taken up with this dynamic expression, so I'm going to just use the canvas placeholder here. Keep it nice and neat. Okay, so that's some of this done. Now I would like to sort out functionality for changing or the ability to change a person's name and email. Okay, maybe I signed up with Greg John and now I want to change it to Gregory John. Maybe I've created a new domain and I want a different domain and I want to update it here. So what we need is another call to Stripe. This is going to be a post call, okay, because we're sending the new data to Stripe. Let's check out the docs first. I'm going to go and look for core and then customers and then update a customer. And it looks like we just have to pass the customer ID and then we can send across name and email. We can do other things here. If there's an address that you need, we can send a customer's address. Got some metadata, phone numbers, shipping addresses, quite a few things here that we can send to Stripe. But we're going to do just name and email. Back to Bubble. And API connector again, guys. Let's add another call. This is going to be called update customer. Now this is an action. Remember, we're running it from the save button, and that will be a post call. Okay. I've actually forgot to get the URL from Stripe, so I'm going to go back to the documentation. Here it is here. Copy, and then paste that in. Same pattern as usual, we need parameters here. So ID is in there. And now the value, uncheck private, so we can feed it through and keep it dynamic. And let's go find an ID of a user. So here's a customer ID here. Okay, this is of Amy Williams's ID. Okay, so we've got two parameters now. So I'm going to add 1, 2. The first one, according to the documentation, is just called name. And the second one is just email. Uncheck private on both and do check query string on both or the call won't work. So to initialize the call, we're just going to put in the same data here. Amy Williams. That's her email address. And now we can go ahead and initialize this call. Okay. So that worked. There's nothing we need to change here. We can just go ahead and save. And by the way, these values here that we do initialize our calls with, if it's sensitive, then go ahead. Once you've initialized the call, you can actually just delete what's in here. Okay. Otherwise, it's going to turn up in the code base once you deploy it. So I'm going to just undo that. This isn't sensitive, so I'm going to leave it as is. Okay, fantastic. So now this is an action, so it's available as a workflow step. Let's go back to the design tab. And I don't want this password input to show by default. We only need this when we update the user on Bubble. So let's add a workflow first and have a look at these steps we need here. So to update a user's name and email address, or specifically email address, it's under account, and we need to look for update user's credentials. And then Bubble says, well, if you want to update either the email or you want to change a password, well, we need the person's current password, okay, or old password. So we're going to get that from the password input, the value, okay? And then we're going to check to change the email, and now we're going to link in the input email address's value. We're not going to deal with any of these, but we could send an email to the new email address to have a user confirm it if you want. And yeah, we'll leave the confirmation method. We could build one with Bubble, or we could just leave the default browser-based message. Anyway, let's crack on with this. So that updates the email address, okay, in this particular step. To update the person's name, well, we need to make changes to thing. That needs to be the current user. And then we need to link in the name with the input. So that takes care of the Bubble end. What about sending this data to Stripe? So we've just initialized the call. It's an action. Therefore, it's going to be available in our... I might need to reinitialize this call again. 1 second. Let me go have a look in plugins. Action. Okay, I'm just going to reinitialize this quickly. Let's have another look. There it is there. It's because I had removed a value and then added it back. Anyway. Okay, so we need the ID, the customer ID. So that is just the current user's ID customer. What's the new name going to be? It's coming from the input. And the email is coming from the input. And then after that happens, we could show our own alert, but we'll just use the Bubble alert for that. Okay, I'm just going to look at this issue. That's fine, we'll get around to that soon. All right, folks, let's actually preview this account page now. Looks like I don't have a max width on one of my groups. Let's just fix this. And also we need to hide this password field until it's needed. So on group container, let's just set a max width of 1200. Okay. Now the logic on this input is I don't want to see it on page load. So on the layout tab of the input password, uncheck this element is visible on page load, and then check collapse when hidden. When do we want to show it? Well, I want to show it when the current user's email is not the input's email, meaning that they've typed in a different email address to what their current email address is, which means they're probably trying to change it. That's when it's visible. Okay, let's preview again. Looks like groups section needs to be centered. So on group container, we're going to center that. And I could see that there was a problem here as well. I'm just going to reformat this as the third date down, okay? Okay, let's preview again. All right, guys, so for me today, it's the 28th of June, 2024, and this is live data coming from Stripe from our retrieve subscription get call. So that is correct. We're on the $20 plan, correct. And let's change some information here. So maybe let's change Amy Williams' name and email address to something else. What about Amy Peters? Maybe the first name needs to be changed as well. So let's say Lucy. And change this to Lucy. Now if we click outside, or didn't even need to click outside, we now need to input the password to be able to change the email address. Let's go ahead and save. Your account has been updated successfully. Okay, let's check out the database. So, hey plus Lucy and Lucy Peters. And what about our Stripe dashboard? I'm going to head back to the dashboard. Head to customers. And here we've got Lucy Peters with the new email address. So the next thing we're going to do is look at invoices. When Lucy, used to be Amy, now Lucy, when she signed up to the starter plan, a checkout session was created, but an invoice was also created. So there is an invoice in Stripe that we can actually pull down and display into a repeating group. Let's have a look. So if I go to billing, actually I can go straight down to subscriptions in my shortcut. Here we go. So hey plus Lucy, if I click into that subscription and I scroll down, I can see that there is an invoice here. Here it is. I'm going to click it. And it has an invoice ID, 640C. Okay, if we go back to the Bubble database and I click on payments, if I open up this payment, 640C. So we've saved that ID back to the database. I'm just going to actually, guys, just change this back to $20 and save. Okay, so we know that we've got an invoice ID saved to the database. There's an invoice in Stripe. We want to bring it down. And I want to show another cool thing about this Stripe invoice. So we have this is our invoice. And an invoice, when it's paid, if I just open up Workbench a second, and I scroll down, we have a invoice PDF. Let me click that. Well, that actually downloaded straight to my computer. But anyway, we are going to save this URL back to Bubble and then display it in a repeating group so that Lucy can then download the PDF. Okay, back to Bubble. Head to the Design tab. And what we need to do is we need two groups within here. Okay, so I'm going to grab this piece of text, manage or cancel your plan below, and just drag it outside. And then I'm going to take the rest of this content. Okay, so group inputs, this text, the text above it, and group actions. I'm going to right click, group elements in a column container. I'm going to call this group current plan. Then on the layout tab, I'm going to add 20 gap spacing. And I'm going to say that this is not visible in page load and is collapsed when hidden. And we're going to be using states to show and hide these by clicking on these text elements. Okay. For now, over in the elements tree, please hide group current plan, because we're going to create some more content. Actually, I'm going to show that one more time. Let me think. Let's just duplicate this group. Command D in my Mac. It's going to put it at the bottom. I'm just going to change it straight away so I don't confuse myself. Group invoices. And then I'm going to say, view and download your invoices below. Full stop. And then I'm just going to delete the content I don't need. Okay. On group invoices, just set a min height of 120 for now, just so we have some space to work within. And then you can go ahead and delete group actions. Okay, now we can build in our repeating group here. So repeating group, get it inside group invoices. And what we're going to display is a list of payments here. So payments, and then we're going to do a search for payments where the user equals the current user. We're going to sort that by created date is descending, yes. I'm going to uncheck fixed number of rows. I'm going to set this to 40. And I'm going to say I want a solid separator of 8, and it needs to be white. Now this first cell, actually, before we do that, we can't see the first cell, so I'm going to set that back to gray. Let's just get a group inside this first cell, please. Draw it in. Group container. This group container is going to be a payment, and it's a current sales payment. Within that, we're just going to add a bit of left-right padding of 16 and 16. Let's get the data inside now. So we need a text element. The first thing we're going to display is the parent group's payments date. So creation date, basically format that as the third one down. And let's add a canvas placeholder just to match what's written here. Okay, so for me it's June 28th. For you it will be whatever the date is today. Okay, fantastic. Now this group container, just let's put it in the center of the content. Okay, and on the text, allow to span edge to edge. It'll sort out its own spacing or calculate its own spacing. Then I'm going to duplicate. Something else we need to do, in group container is make it a row. And because it's a row, now we need to re-click these and put them in the center. Okay, fantastic. Let's crack on. So now we need to set up the plan or display the plan. So it's the plans display. And the canvas placeholder, let's just say starter. Now the amount, duplicate, is going to be the payments amount. And then just format that as a currency. No decimal places. You can if you want. I prefer not to for whole round numbers. And lastly, we need a link element for the download. So I've clicked on link. I'm just going to get it inside for now. I'm going to say download. This is going to be an external URL. And actually, earlier on I said we're going to save the PDF back to Bubble. Let's not. Let's just make a get call. Go get the invoice, and then we'll get the hosted PDF or the uploaded PDF to then be able to download it. And to do that, we are going to say get data from page URL. We're going to retrieve an invoice. We're going to feed through the parent group's payments ID invoice. That's why we're saving all of these IDs. And then we're going to go find. If I just type URL, no, PDF, invoice, PDF, there we go. Lovely. Let's make the style a secondary. And let's remove fixed width and min width. So we can then fit width to content, make it nice and neat and snug. Let's make the height 32. Right, just a smaller button here, or download link. Lastly, let's just make last and put it vertically aligned in the center. Okay, we're just going to sort out some little design pieces here. So please remove them in height. It should close down to a single cell. Remove them in width. On the appearance tab of the repeating group, I want to keep the width at 8, but change it to white. Let's not do that. Let's just choose 1 with light gray. That's better. And then I'm going to give a border style to the entire repeating group of solid, 8 on the roundness, and then light gray. So in terms of visibility, we need to sort out these states now. So ungroup invoices, head over to the layout tab and just remove them in height. Then scroll up and say collapse when hidden, yes, and this element is not visible on page load, correct. So both of these are hidden on page load, which means both of these texts to begin with, I want them both to be this medium gray and medium gray. Okay, let's sort out the states here. So I'm going to add a workflow on current plan. I'm going to say element actions, set state. I'm just going to set state to the account page. View, or actually maybe tab is better here. Tab, that's what these are. This will be text. And when I click on current plan, let's set it to plan, all lowercase. Going to copy this. Let's do the next one, invoices. Add a workflow, paste in that step and change plan to invoices. Okay, so that's how we set the state. Now, if we go back to account, I'm going to scroll up to the elements tree to find the page account because I'd like to set a default state on this little I element inspector of plan. So something shows on page load, otherwise nothing will show. Cool, now we can apply these states for visibility purposes and for design purposes. So on the current plan text, we can go to the conditional and we can say that account tab is plan. When that is true, let's change the color. Font color then becomes our black. Okay, nice feedback for the user. Let's do the same for invoices. When the accounts tab is invoices, then we're going to change it to black. And the last thing we need to do before we can test this is also set the conditionals on these groups because both of them are not visible on page load. Okay, so I'm just going to copy this condition here, the plan one, copy. I'm going to go back to the group current plan, define another condition and paste in the expression. And then I can set the visibility to yes via the checkbox. Then I'm going to go to invoices, copy the conditional expression from the text invoices, and then use that to paste in to group invoices. Okay, why don't we preview the page and see how we're getting on. Okay, so click across to invoices, and here we have an invoice from June 28th, which is today for me. This will be your current date. Starter plan, $20. What happens when we click on this link? And I'm not sure if you saw it, but in the bottom left-hand corner, the PDF was downloaded. I'm just going to go have a look for it quickly. And here we go, guys. Here is the invoice. Now it's billed to Amy Williams because we changed Amy's user details later on. So legally it has to be that the name she initially used, okay? But this is now updated and new invoices will be in the new name, Lucy. But this is the PDF created by Stripe. Brilliant. Go back to the current plan. So what else do we have to do here? We've got the manage plan and we've got the cancel plan. So let's deal with the canceling of the plan first, and then we'll move on to managing a plan from customer portal. Before canceling a plan, we're going to go back to the API connector, set up that post call, and then integrate the workflows back into Bubble. Just wanted to show you a quick overview first of what's happening in the background in terms of communicating with Stripe and then Stripe sending data back to us. So from the account page, when a user clicks on cancel subscription, we're sending that user to Stripe, and then we're using a backend webhook to basically update the subscription. Now you might be thinking to yourself, why doesn't this say subscription deleted? Why does it say updated? So this is a subscription, and if a person cancels in the middle of the month or before the end of the subscription, you don't just want to stop their subscription right there. We need to end it at the end of the billing period for that particular month or year, depending on the plan that they took out. So that's good practice. So we're going to be updating a person's subscription to say, I want the subscription to be cancelled at the end of the current billing period. So if they press a button on the 9th of September, it's cancelled on the 30th of September. So they have the rest of that period. Okay, it would be terrible if we just stop their subscription as they press the button and they have some period left on their plan. Okay, so let's configure this. So I'm back in the Stripe docs and we have update a subscription. And yes, eventually a subscription will be cancelled. So cancel up a subscription. That is when we change active to no. Remember the active yes is no on a subscription? When it eventually is cancelled, Stripe will deal with the timing of that, and then Stripe will let us know it's time to change active to no. For now though, we're not going to do that. So let's go back to update a subscription. Go ahead and copy the URL. Copy that. And what we're going to be doing now is using this particular field, cancel at period end. That's all we're going to do. We're going to set that to true because Stripe already knows the date of the period end. Back into Bubble. Let's head to the API connector. And let's firstly collapse all of these so they're nice and neat. Okay, so we've done our checkout session, invoice, subscription, and we're updating a customer. Let's add another call. Now we are going to call this cancel the subscription. Even though we're just updating the subscription, it'll be a bit confusing to us, or not very clear what we're trying to do here. So we're going to name the call ourselves, cancel subscription. That will be done through a workflow action. And that is a post call because we need to send the subscription details. Okay, now remove this. Add an ID for our parameters. Uncheck private. And now we need to determine which subscription we are canceling at the end of the billing period. Okay, into the database. And we've only got one subscription. Grab the ID. Back to the API connector. Let's paste it in. Okay, make sure that that copied across all of it. And now this is where we add our parameter and we have to type cancel at period end, joined with underscores. Like so. The value will be true. And we can keep that as private because this won't be dynamic, okay? This is just a very simple step here. We're changing one thing on the user's subscription. But this does need to be a query string. Please don't forget to check that for all of these calls. Okay, so let's just jump into the Stripe dashboard before we do this. I'm going to go to my dashboard. And we're going to go to subscriptions. And look for Lucy. It's currently active. Okay, currently active. Okay, so we've done the API connector part. That's basically informing Stripe that you'd like, or Lucy would like to cancel at the period end. But now we need to receive some data back. And of course, we're going to be using webhooks. So we're going to create another webhook. So let's head to developers, go to Stripe dashboard, go to developers, click on webhooks. Now we're going to create a new endpoint. And if you are an experienced developer and you have been working with Stripe endpoints, maybe you have multiple events attached to one webhook. That's not wrong. That's absolutely fine. I prefer splitting it up, making it a little bit cleaner and only dealing with the events per webhook. So one event per one webhook. It's just personal preference. I think it's better doing it that way. going to create a new endpoint. And then I'm going to look for a subscription. It's actually under customer, apologies, customer. And we're looking for customer subscription updated. Here we go. Occurs whenever a subscription changes. And there's quite a lot of information that comes back, and there are quite a few scenarios where we would use this. One of them is also when a plan is upgraded or downgraded because their subscription is being updated. For that, we will need to build in some bubble logic. Let's continue. For the description, we're going to say when a user cancels their plan or upgrades or downgrades their plan. Now the endpoint needs to come from Bubble, so let's head back to Bubble. Let's go to the backend workflows, and we're going to create a new API workflow. We're going to call this subscription updated. And I'm going to put these in brackets. And we're going to check all three of these. And I'm aware that we still need to secure these endpoints, which we'll do very soon. This is going to be detect request data. And we're going to include headers for security purposes, of which I've just mentioned. Okay, so let's detect data. Click on the E for initialize to grab the entire URL. And leave that running. Now we're going to go back to Stripe. Paste that in. Make sure we've got the full URL with initialize with the E on the end. Let's go ahead and create this destination. Okay, here it is here on the left-hand side. I can actually see that it says subscription updates instead of updated. I prefer a D on the end, so what I'm going to do is just edit it quickly. With a D, I'm going to save. Nothing else we need to do here for the time being. Back to my backend workflows in Bubble. Just going to cancel this a second. Fix the typo. And then detect data again. Okay, so we're going to leave that running. Now we're going to go make sure we logged in as Lucy and try cancel the plan. Okay, I'm logged in as Lucy Peters. I currently have a plan, and actually we just need to sort out the workflow for this as well, excuse me. So let's first of all go to account, and we need to run the workflow. Of course we do. Quite a few things we need to do here, guys. I'm going to go find the current plan. Here it is here. And let's add a workflow. Because we initialized the call from the API connector earlier, it's now available in plugins. It's actually not available in plugins for some reason. And that is because we haven't initialized the call. Okay. So this is, it's a little bit, there are a lot of things we have to do in tandem here. We have to have the webhook initialization process live and running. So actually we can initialize the webhook, just thinking about it, we can initialize the webhook from here. Now, how would we do that? That would be tricky. No, we won't be able to. So I'll tell you what, let's just initialize this call. Let's just go ahead. Let's initialize the call. Okay, if you see the pop-up that's succeeded, press save. That's now initialized. Now let's go to Stripe and check on the data. And I'm going to close Workbench. And now we can see cancels on the 28th of July. If I click on that, I'm now on Lucy Peters subscription. It's still live. It's still active equals yes. Okay, there's the active. So that matches what's in our database. And if I scroll down to some of the events, I can see that Lucy, her subscription has been set to cancel at the end of the billing period. And guys, I can see one webhook here, one pending webhook. And this is because it's not been initialized. So what we'll do is this. Let's click on this now, one pending webhook. Okay, and we've got a resend button here. And also Stripe is going to try resend in an hour. Beautiful. So let's now go back to Bubble. With that initialized, we're going to go to our backend workflows. Detect data. And from here, we can resend that webhook, which should initialize this call. Okay, here I am back in Workbench, and I'm going to click on resend for customer subscription updated. And we've got a success, 200, that's been delivered. Go back to Bubble. Okay, so this is initialized. If you see the pop-up, it's initialized. And we just need to check on some data, the kind of data that we need. And that has to be in the correct date format, okay? Because basically we're trying to track when to downgrade or cancel their subscription. So we can see object cancel at, that's what I want. So I'm going to change number to date Unix, because this is a Unix value that's been returned. And the cancel at period end is basically a Boolean, a yes or a no. Okay, let's save that. So now we can make changes to thing. We're making changes to a subscription. We have to go find the subscription. Which one? Okay, so we'll have an ID here that we can utilize. Request status, object ID. Because the object that's been sent back to us is basically a subscription object. Okay, fantastic. So now we need to add two new fields to a subscription. One is cancel at. That is a date. And the other one is basically cancel at period end, which is a question. Should we cancel at the end of the billing period? This is a yes, no. So to get this date, remember we changed it to a Unix date. I say cancel at. And that resolves to a date. And you type cancel at period end. And that will just resolve to a yes. Okay. So this is how we know that a user has decided to cancel their plan. But there is also another endpoint we need to configure for when that plan is finally deleted on Stripe. Stripe will let us know through a webhook, and that's when we change this subscription's active to no, and that's when we can limit access to whatever we like in the app. We're not going to do that right now. We're just going to finish off a few other things. All right, let's go back to Stripe. Actually, before we do that, let's go to the account page and just run the workflow or sort out the workflow for the cancel button. Okay, edit the workflow. Go down to plugins, find cancel subscription, and send the current user's subscriptions ID subscription. And perhaps thinking about the UX here, if they click on the cancel button, it might have been by mistake. So we probably need a double confirm here. So actually, I'd like to spend a few minutes creating a pop-up just to make sure that a user meant to click on cancel and it wasn't just a slip of the finger. Maybe they're on a mobile phone. Let's just go back to Stripe and take the initialization part of the webhook URL. We need to remove that. Let's do that first, then we'll create the pop-up. So back to Stripe. And we're going to find, we're going to go to webhooks. Make sure we're on the correct webhook. This one says subscription updated /initialize. We need to edit this. Going to remove / initialize so it ends on the D for updated. And then I can save. Okay, that means future webhooks will run. It wouldn't run if we just left it with initialize. Okay, let's do this pop-up and bubble. So I think we can just copy and paste, or I know we can just copy and paste a pop-up from another page. Let's go to the pricing page. And with pop-up success, let's just go edit. Let's first highlight pop-up success and copy it. Okay, then head back to your account page and paste it. So this is basically a double confirm about canceling. So let's just change the icon. Could be anything. What about a credit card? Probably not green because we're a bit sad. So maybe make this sort of a dark gray. Text can now be changed to cancel. And the message will be, are you sure you'd like to cancel your subscription? And then do 2 line breaks, because why don't we just let them know that when they click the cancel button, they won't lose access. They will, it will schedule to cancel at the end of the billing period. So let's say your subscription will remain active until, and then we'll find the date. And then we can grab the data from the API. We can grab the subscription by feeding through the ID of their subscription, current user's subscriptions ID. Okay, and then that returns all of this good stuff. And we can go to current period end. Format what's returned with the third format date type. And then we're good to go. And why don't we just say, give the user an option to, well, we'll have cancel first of all. And why don't we just copy and paste this button? And on the next one, why don't we say, I've changed my mind? Maybe this one can be our, let's be cheeky and make it our primary. Okay, guys, so these need to be in a row container. Change it to buttons on the layout tab. Let's add 20 pixels between them. Remove the min height. And on this button here, I've changed my mind. Let's make this bigger. Hopefully they click that rather. And maybe make it first. All right, so if they click this button, all we do is hide the pop-up. Okay. And I'm going to rename this pop-up to cancel. And now if they click on this cancel, this is when we do actually go to the cancel subscription, feed through the current user subscriptions ID, and then close the pop-up. Now, I'm not going to create another confirmation that says your subscription has now been cancelled. It's probably a very good idea to do this, but this course is becoming really long, so I just want to crack on with the logic, okay? But go ahead and create your own alert or another pop-up that says, success, it's scheduled to cancel at the end of the billing period. Up to you. And now to initialize this pop-up, or to show the pop-up, we just have to quickly adapt the workflow on the cancel button here. So we're going to edit the workflow on the cancel button. I'm going to delete what we did earlier and just show the pop-up. Pop-up cancel. I think we should stop here a moment. This is a good place to basically segue into webhook security. We've got a few more webhook endpoints to create, and I'd like to get into the routine of actually securing these endpoints. So let's stop here and I'll see you in the next part.